that I didn't want to hear what God had to say to me. Okay? I wanted to totally go against the total law and order of what God had to say to me. Okay? I felt like God had took away so much, and every time I kept trying and pursuing and going forward and not letting things get to me, that He said, okay, I give you three chances that summer. Two, cops knocked on your door. You get away with it. They say they can't find a warrant for your arrest. Okay. So you want to deny me a third time? Look at what happened to Peter. I'm like, okay, whatever. At this time, I'm really not thinking about it. And so all of a sudden, when I did think about it, is when the third time I was sleeping at Sleep In off of I-65, I think. It was on Sam Ridley Parkway coming from Nashville, Tennessee. And I had overslept. And I just was exhausted. The summer had really took its toll on me. It was very hot. Me and Todd used to go out to the parks and everything else, and I try to do little cookouts or play cards, or I knew that he liked reading books, so I would just let him read. I just wanted to spend time with him because I knew that my time was coming close. I knew that I turned everything against God, and I put him before God, and I put Ann before God, and Ann was a really fabulous person, and I just couldn't let her know everything else, and I would be angry, and I used to say things that I didn't even mean, and I don't even know why I would say things. I guess it was just all the poison and the bitterness and the toxins of what happened to me in my life. I used to just say things. I used to talk about people and really not even mean it, but when it came to certain situations that people that really did hurt me and everything else or said things about me, I'd hold it in. I'd hold it and hold it and hold it until something just popped in my head and I'd just go off and explode. I'm not that kind of person anymore, thank God. But after that, uh, they came knocking on my door the third time. They thought I was dead, and so they came in and was asking me questions, and something in my spirit just that night before and all the times that we used to fight and everything else, I used to scream to God. I used to say, just Jesus, 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 help me. And sometimes gotta be careful what you gotta ask of God. He might help you, just not the way you think you can be helped. So all of a sudden, I spent 14 days in the county jail at Rutherford County. They had arrested me for being a fugitive of justice. Um, from there, I had started a prayer circle. Me started a prayer circle. Wow. And so we started praying and doing things, and I started singing. And this man came to me with a poem. It says, "Either you run or you stand." And that thing just touched my life because sometimes if you run from the problem, it gets worse. And I know that by experience. You got to stand up for what you believe in. And I didn't believe at that in the time because I felt like since I did that for my family, my mom and my sister, and they haven't been there a part of my life, and everything else that they took my love for granted, and they always wanted to listen to what everybody else said and not listen to the truth or listen to their heart, and knew that I was just trying to make it through and get them through life without them dying. And so I was praying that my mom and my sister would be okay. And if anything ever happened to me in prison, let them be okay. Well, I know that my mom got saved while I was in prison, and she was praying for me to keep me alive. And so I did 14 days, like I said, in the Rutherford County Jail. 14 years old is when I lost my father. Uh, 3 days in the county jail transportation unit that transported me back from Tennessee to Pensacola, Florida. I did that added up to 17 days. I had then got to Pensacola September 11th of uh, 2008. And it was funny because that was 7 years of when that happened from the Trade Center. And I was in the county jail in 2001 when the Trade Center, trade, eh, the World Trade Center got hit and they locked down the compound. Okay, and also that's when I got raped. So from there, I had went to stay at CBD instead of Castle Grayskull this time because I told them that I got raped in Castle Grayskull and it was a very horrible situation. And so I left in November. Okay, I had got sentenced I think November 6th. And then I went to Washington Annex. From there, I was I got really good into God, and I started going to church. And from that point on, I had never stopped going to church. Then they moved me over to uh, Appalachia Correctional Center, East Unit. And East Unit, oh my God, I get there, and the first week I get there, it was a Friday night, and this man tried to rape me, and I got out of it because all of a sudden my face got split open right here. That's why I wear makeup now, because I got a scar right here because my face got busted open because on a Friday night I told this man that I did not want nothing to do with this man because this man was an old man that just ugh. And his name was Roman. Okay, and next thing I know, I go to sleep. I wake up and he's on top of me, beating me, just knocking the hell out of me, blood going everywhere. I bite his arm to get out of the situation because he tried to rape me. He tried to beat the hell out of me, and nobody helped me. What kind of bullshit, punk ass shit is that? So next thing I know, I spend 21 days in the infirmary, confinement area, alone. 21 days. 21 years old is when I got this charge of absconding because I was in an abusive relationship with Rob. And we, God, it puts the topping on what me and Todd went through. It's nothing compared to what me and Todd went through. Todd was a walk in the park, okay? And so from that point on, I started seeing signs, symbols, parables, moving stories. I started seeing between the dark and the light, which is knowledge and wisdom, is the light, and dark is ignorance, okay? And I started really getting into the word and started really breaking down the parables and getting the understanding and the wisdom and knowledge that I needed to get out of it. And then next thing I know, I spent about another year until I literally died, and nobody knew that I died. I was bucking against authority. I was not listening to them. I didn't care what those officers had to say to me because they were very hateful. They wanted to judge people. They wanted to treat people unkindly. And I'm not going to sit there and just let anybody do that because I went through that for all my life. And do you think I'm going to just sit there and let somebody mistreat somebody? No, I have a voice and I will speak my mind, okay? I'm not scared to speak my mind. And so the next thing I know, I had caught staph infection. I had got stabbed and staph infection. What a great paradox to this whole situation. So during that whole time that I stayed in confinement, I had stayed in my own bodily fluids. And I stayed in my own infection, and it got so bad that it made a big, huge hole close to my spine. And I remember dying in my sleep. And then God was telling me, no, He doesn't give you more than what you can handle. And I couldn't handle that. And so next thing I know, I just begged God, please don't do this to me right now. I don't want to die in here without being heard, okay? Without being known, okay? And the next thing I know, I guess Mom was praying the same thing too because I made it out alive out of that whole situation. And I have vast knowledge of prison. The Latin Kings, the Bloods, the Crips, the Folks, the Setes, the whew, all the gangs and everything else, which they came and I learned all about them, and I was a hot shitty mess in prison. Don't get me wrong. After Todd, I just said hell with it. I'm gonna let myself go, okay? And I regret a lot of the decisions I did in prison. I made, but it was my chance to be able to really get into the dark world of prison and experience everything that prison had to go for. I know things that will have your mind like, what? Are you kidding me? But God got me through it because I hit total rock bottom, and I had to hit rock bottom for God to catch me in my darkest moment. And believe me, if you heard the things that I experienced or I did, or I know that there's certain things that it can affect you that prison had taught me, you'd be like, are you really kidding me? There's things that could shut prisons down if I knew what I knew now, and what those officers do. Well, then all of a sudden, the first year I didn't have my family at all, period. And uh, nobody was contacting me. And then all of a sudden I started praying, and then God brung Travis, and Travis was talking through me, helping me get through it when I didn't have my mom or anybody else. And then at the very last year of my sentence, my family came back into my life. My dad, which is now my dad in Christ. Roy, he is a very good man. He's an ex Cairo minister, and he has taken really good care of my mom. Had brung my mom and my sister and her fiance up, and it came on my birthday, came on Valentine's, just did all kinds of things for me in my life. And it just shocked and amazed me that God listened to a wretch like me because I was really gone. I was so messed up, I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I let the darkness engulf me. I didn't care anymore. And there's times that I still want to backslide and everything else, but God catches my attention every single time. And so I just wanted to say, without God, you won't have life. Because there is a fine line between life and death, and dark and light. And if people do not go towards the light, this world is going to fall apart. Because all we want to do is gripe and complain and argue and get hateful. And any dark emotion does not come from God. Just know that it does not come from God. It could all that confusion, and the list could go on about emotions that are not light. Okay, and when you start feeling like that, you need to start getting closer to the light, because you know what? Look at what happens to people in the dark. They get destroyed. They end up pulling themselves out of the abyss of hell. And I did that, and I will always keep shining in my darkest time. And when you can't, stand firm. This too shall pass. It's like the Yolanda Adams song. This too shall pass. It always passes. It always gets better. It always. If we had a rainbow every single day, we would take that rainbow for granted. Okay? And I had enough storms, and I had enough rain, and I had enough pain, and I had enough problems in my life to finally say, God, this enough is enough. Okay? I praise you, I know you, I love you, and I speak in your name, not in mine. Because it's not my will anymore, it's His will be done. Because every time you try to do it yourself, it always ends up to be a failure. But if you ask God for His guidance and everything else, He'll steer you the right way. He always does. Sometimes you can't figure out His will or His way, but you know what? As long as you pray about it, He'll guide you in the right way. He always does. He just asks you to call upon Him in His name, and pray and worship, and love Him to the utmost. And when you don't, He will catch your attention one way or another. Mark my words to that. And do not hate people, okay? It says to love one another. Don't hate people. It's the wrong way to do it. I know by experience it's the wrong way to do it. And I'm a living testimony for that situation. I've always hated, and I've always got angry, and I've always lost too many people in my life. And I refuse to do that because it made me I'm an ex-drug addict. I'm an ex-alcoholic. I used to chase every temporary high. okay? Used to chase every temporary high. I